Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Mike Braden. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And hey, no cousin Shane. Sorry, he's free. He's out of jail, but he's under the weather. So I can't make this stuff up. He told me he'll be back as soon as he's back on his feet. So reached out to our good buddy, friend of the show, Chris Marler, Saturday Down South, college football uncensored, to talk, of course, the upcoming national championship game, Alabama's demise, Tennessee's rise, and a whole lot more. So we'll get to that in just a second. But man, since we last recorded, we have had all kinds of coaching news in the SEC. Still waiting for more to drop. It's been a wild time here in the SEC, and let's just get started with the news. It broke my heart when it didn't happen. Now that it is, back on the bandwagon, baby. Bobby Petrino down to College Station. Lasted about 3 weeks there in Las Vegas. It doesn't take long to go bust in Vegas, and apparently Barry Odom found that out pretty quickly because he hired Bobby Petrino away from Missouri State. Now Bobby Petrino back on the radar for Texas A&M, and I think this is great. The jokes are going to come easy. We're already seeing it. Bobby Petrino in the neck brace and all, the motorcycle. Hell, I've even done it myself. But, hey, on the face of this, I think this is brilliant. Yes, Jimbo is essentially putting the fate of his tenure in College Station in Bobby Petrino's hands, but, man, Bobby, he's a wild card. He's the ultimate wild card. But the thing you can't say about him is when he's motivated, when he's engaged, he's one of the best out there. We got a good look at that this season when Missouri State went into Fayetteville, went toe-to-toe with Arkansas for much of that football game, scored 27 on Arkansas. I know Arkansas didn't have a great defense, but this is an FCS team. You got to remember that. I don't think they could have done a better job than hiring Bobby Petrino. Laid it out before. I'll lay it out again. But first, let's look at what Bobby Petrino did at Missouri State. For those that think that maybe he's just over the hill, and Jimbo, I've seen this. Jimbo's hired another outdated offensive guy. Well, his first season at Missouri State went 5-1 in the conference. Shared I don't even know what the conference is, but they did share a title of it. He was named Conference Coach of the Year. That was his first year. Second year, 8-4 overall, 6-2 in conference play. And then this year, the wheels kind of fell off, 5-6 overall, 3-5 in conference play. But again, so a losing team at the FCS rank went into Fayetteville, scored 27. Some terrific play calls by Bobby Petrino. He still has it, clearly. Missouri State did finish 25th in the FCS in scoring, red zone scoring, 72nd in third down conversion. So maybe you get an indication why Bobby Petrino was wanted out of there. It was not overall going well, but it was trending downward, I think it's fair to say. So you could call him out for that, but Bobby Petrino wears thin on people quick. If he lasts 2, 3, 4 seasons at A&M, the same thing will happen. But this is not a move I don't think Jimbo is making for the long haul. He's making it for now. He needs a spark. Again, incredible play caller. Take some of those responsibilities off of Jimbo during the game. We've all seen the photos. See him on the sideline with his Cheesecake Factory menu over there looking through it. It's an awful look, and it's an even worse look when your offense is as pathetic as Texas A&M had a top 100 offense efficiency. This move had to be made. Getting in a credible play caller, someone that has been a head coach in the SEC, head coach in the ACC. Hell, he's been a coach in the NFL. Didn't last long, but he has been there. That's Bobby Petrino. He is not going to be intimidated by Jimbo Fisher. I don't care what Jimbo Fisher's getting paid there. Bobby Petrino will walk his ass out the door if Jimbo yanks the play calling duties from him, because we've seen Bobby Petrino walk out the door before. And people look at that as a negative. I look at that, again, as a positive, because he's not going to take any of Jimbo's crap. He still works for the guy, but they're going to have to work together to make this work in College Station. Won't be a pushover, and clearly, this says to me that he's motivated to, go out a winner, maybe get back to major college football as a head coach. His path to get there was not at Missouri State. His path, and it wasn't at UNLV either. His path is at Texas A&M. So this is an accomplished coach that's got a lot to prove, taking over the offense there in College Station, and the entertainment factor is going to be off the chain. Whether this works, if it does, A&M's going to be an SEC college football contender as soon as next season, legitimately. If it doesn't work, it's going to be a spectacular failure, and Texas A&M will get them a new coach. That's, again, I think it's that big of a deal. So one way or another, we're going to have success or we're going to have a new coach at A&M if this blows up. But I don't think it will. And another thing you could say about the issues plaguing A&M, I know that they get very sensitive when we call out their lack of production at the quarterback position. I never thought Kellen Mond got better. From his sophomore season to the senior season, he was essentially the same guy. Statistically, a little bit better as a senior. Well, also, they had an elite offensive line. They were running people over. He could have been a Heisman winner based on what I saw his sophomore year. Just never took that big step. Well, that's also what you're potentially getting in Bobby Petrino. We all know he's coached Lamar Jackson to a Heisman, and now he's one of the best NFL quarterbacks. Some of the other quarterbacks he's coached, Ryan Mallett, of course, Tyler Wilson, who made it to the NFL, and he had a hell of a season there at Arkansas. He also recruited Brandon Allen, who, again, I know he didn't really coach him to much success at Arkansas. That came later. But Brandon Allen, I think he's still in the NFL. He was in the NFL for a number of years if he's not still there. So that has got to excite me if I'm an A&M fan. This guy knows how to develop quarterbacks. And again, kind of the same thing I just said with Jimbo. Taking away a lot of these other responsibilities, recruiting, managing the roster. Bobby Petrino is not going to have to do any of that. He's going to have to execute the game plan, get his quarterback, Connor Wigman, playing the best football of his career. I think is a grand slam. I really do. The only negative, his character. We could spend the rest of the show talking about that. And I think taking the UNLV job, that lasted, again, just a couple of weeks. That says something about the guy as well. Not that I fault the guy for leaving UNLV for Texas A&M. 100 out of 100 coaches are going to make that move. But the timing of it is interesting, to say the least. And the final thing that I've kind of got on this may have been a little bit of a reality check for A&M and Jimbo Fisher. Because all I heard was they're going to get Garrett Riley. They're going to get some hot shit. They're going to get the best. They could throw whatever money they want out there. They can get whoever they want. And there was probably a time that was true. But the fact that you hired Bobby Petrino, I just said all those great things about him. It also says to me that this job was probably not as attractive as Jimbo Fisher hoped it would be. And again, that's not to discredit Bobby Petrino, because I think he's an excellent coach. But to get a young, rising coordinator, I think working with Jimbo is not something that is maybe attractive to some of the big names, like a Alex Golish, who I know took over at South Florida, or there's a number of guys that were floated out there. Baylor's offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes, I know that Baylor was not outstanding this season, but I believe they won the Big 12, and I know they went to the Sugar Bowl the year prior. Jeff Grimes probably going to be a head coach before long. Texas A&M a hell of a lot better job than Baylor. I don't know if there was a bunch of interest there or not. The Washington offensive coordinator was apparently someone they were kind of interested in, and he had a hell of a year there at Washington. Couldn't get that guy. So, I don't know. I do not know if working for Jimbo, with Jimbo's background being an offensive coordinator, being a kind of stuck in his ways, so to speak, on the offensive side of the ball, I wonder, how willing he was going to be to. Right now in January, he can say he's given up the offensive play calling. what happens week 2, week 3, week 4 if the offense is not where he thinks it should be. He's going to grab that thing right back. And Bobby Petrino is about the only one he probably can't grab that back from. So it's interesting. And that, again, that's just me speculating. But the fact that they could have had Petrino a couple weeks ago, I don't know what happened. Now he goes to UNLV. Now he comes back. They're circling back to a guy that was obviously on their list. But again, they could have had him at the time. Could have had him before the early signing period. Didn't happen, but it's happening now. And I think it's a great move. And if it's not, it's going to be entertaining as hell. So we win either way. And speaking of making an offensive coordinator hire for the first time ever, which is what Jimbo just did, Eli Drinkwitz also hiring an offensive coordinator. He's never done that before. I know he's not been a coach nearly as long, not nearly as successful as Jimbo, but they reach out to Fresno State offensive coordinator Kirby Moore is the new offensive coordinator there at Missouri. That's official. He is the younger brother of Kellen Moore, former Boise quarterback, and of course now the offensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys down there. He's been named to 24/7 Sports 30 best coaches under the age of 30 twice. Kirby Moore's made that list, and more impressively, according to the numbers shared to us by Dave Bartu's Matrix Analytical, Fresno State had the number 15 offensive scoring efficiency offense in the country that old Kirby Moore led. So top 15, I mean, that's outstanding, obviously. Bartu also had Moore as the number 8 offensive play caller in his first year at Fresno State. So this is a guy that comes with an outstanding reputation in the coaching world. Fresno State led the Mountain West in scoring, led the Mountain West in third down conversions. 2 aspects Missouri has obviously struggled. He coaches quarterbacks as well. And that is going to be a title that he keeps in Columbia as well, offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. So this is great news for Sam Horn, great news for Brady Cook, and the rest of the quarterbacks there in Missouri. The offense did better once again with Drink kind of giving up the play calling duties late in the season. Sensing a theme here, these coaches, especially if they're struggling, putting out so many fires, you've got to give up some of that control, and I think it helps you on game day. There's just not that many Steve Spurriers out there in the world of college football, no doubt. We also had a coordinator hire at Tennessee, Joey Halzle. The quarterbacks coach has been promoted. He's been working with Josh Heupel going into 15 years now, so I mean, there should not be any kind of transition period whatsoever. Halzle sat with Alex Golesh every game day there up in the box. So again, very familiar with what was going on there with the Tennessee offense. This is an interesting move that Heupel decided not to go outside of his system, but at the end of the day, how can you fault it given how successful Tennessee has been on offense? Arguably the nation's top offense with top quarterback play from Hendon Hooker. Joe Milton obviously showcased what he could do in the Orange Bowl, so you're keeping that continuity for the next quarterback as well. He's also recruited Taven Jackson and the 5-star Nico to Tennessee, so you got to imagine those quarterbacks also happy with this decision, keeping it seamless. Now Tennessee will have to hire a tight ends coach to make up for losing Alex Golesh, the new South Florida coach. So I just thought that was pretty interesting, and Halzle will stay on as quarterbacks coach as well. So that was the title he previously had. He's going to maintain that position as well. And Tennessee, other news on that front, big news potentially for the Vol offense next season. Senior tight end Jacob Warren announced he will be back for a 6th season at Tennessee. Jacob Warren is a solid piece of that offense. Not a big play receiver type at the tight end position, but the tight end position is, a very, very demanding position in this offense with what Josh Heupel and company asked those tight ends to do. Losing Jacob Warren would have left them with no experienced tight ends returning. So this is huge. I know they got the transfer and they've got a touted freshman coming in, but this really helps that room. I think Jacob Warren, that's one that may go under the radar, but great news for Tennessee's offense next season as they transition to a new starting quarterback. And last coordinator news here in the SEC, Mississippi State. Not the coordinator news they're waiting for, but still, defensive coordinator has been named Matt Brock. He was your linebackers coach last season under Zach Arnett, now being promoted to defensive coordinator. Matt Brock called the defense for Mississippi State in their bowl win over Illinois. So, again, this signs that this was going to happen. He's been working under Zach Arnett the entire time there in Stark for the last 3 seasons. So someone Zach Arnett very comfortable with. This is another guy that's been named to the 30 best coaches under the age of 30 previously, Matt Brock. So I love what Zach Arnett's doing here, keeping that continuity, keeping that defense going. And I like the fact that going into his first season as the head coach down there in Mississippi State, he's not overloading his plate with having to keep the defensive play calling responsibilities. So smart move there from Zach Arnett. And then big news potentially here for Mississippi State receivers coach Chad Bumpus, former outstanding Mississippi State receivers coach, joined Zach Arnett's staff. He was previously at Utah, and this is a fan favorite. Again, I think he's the most productive receiver in Mississippi State history. So anytime you can get a guy like that to come back to the program, he's going to recruit his ass off, coach and develop these players. Mississippi State, one of the deepest receiver rooms in the SEC, it's been hit by graduation and transfers. So they're going to have to kind of restock that room a little bit here, and Chad Bumpus, the guy to do it. And we're still waiting for an offensive coordinator hire, but I do want to say this. I think Zach Arnett is going about this the right way. You could have kept a lot of the same pieces in place, some of the Mike Leach's guys, but this ain't Mike Leach's program anymore. This has got to be Zach Arnett's program. And if he just goes into it trying to keep all the pieces that Mike Leach wanted, he's going to fail. He's got to do it his way with respect to Mike Leach. Kind of, I don't want to say blowing up the offensive staff, but reworking it. We mentioned this on the last show, and apparently it's got a lot of smoke here. Kendall Browse, Arkansas offensive coordinator, considering joining Mississippi State. That would be devastating to Arkansas. It'd be a huge cue to Mississippi State. We'll see if that happens. We'll obviously keep you guys updated, but signs are that there's going to be a change here on off. Sawyer Robertson, the backup quarterback, he has hit the transfer portal, and this is someone that pushed Will Rogers during training camp. Former 4-star recruit, another 4-star quarterback, a freshman, has jumped in the portal as well. So, indications are that these players believe that the offense is going to be changing quite a bit here at Mississippi State. No idea if these players are being asked to enter the portal or anything, but Sawyer Robertson is one to keep your eye on. I think while he's not proven anything at the major college football level, I think he could be a starter for someone at the Power 5 level. So interesting developments there at Mississippi State. But again, love what Zach Arnett is doing early on in his tenure. Recruiting is going well. I think he's making a lot of the right hires. We'll see who he hires at offensive coordinator. Very well could dictate his ultimate success or failure in Starkville. And 2 updates here in the SEC East real quick before we get to our interview with Chris Marler. Jordan Birch, defensive lineman, South Carolina, hitting the portal. Sounds like NIL certainly playing a factor here. And, it's a blow. Jordan Birch was I think he was top 5 overall prospect when he came out of just a local high school, Hammond High School there in Columbia. Never really quite lived up to that hype, but he is coming off his best season he's ever had. So this is a blow. You can, just in the SEC, it's a line of scrimmage game. As much as we want to marvel at these quarterbacks and receivers and outstanding running backs we got littered across the conference, these games are won in the line of scrimmage. Potentially a big hit here for South Carolina looking ahead to next season. And speaking of the line of scrimmage, though, good news for Kentucky, because team captain, senior guard Kenneth Horsey, announced he will be back for a 6th season in Lexington. That offensive line was a train wreck at times. They've hit it hard in the transfer portal. Bringing back Horsey was a must. Get a sense that he wants to right some wrongs. Doesn't want to leave Big Blue Nation here, the Big Blue Wall. He wants to get back to that before he ends his college career. Love to see this, and I believe Kentucky now is poised to start essentially a full offensive line of either redshirt seniors or redshirt juniors next season. So, again, I know they weren't great this year, but experience certainly matters. The more experience on that offensive line, the better. Getting in some talent there. Kentucky's offensive line, good start heading into spring football. But all right, let's kick it over now to our interview with Chris Marler, Saturday Down South. Always an entertaining interview. All right, hey, we're pleased to once again be joined by a friend of the show, Chris Marler. You know him from Saturday Down South, college football uncensored. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, good, man. Good. Just living out what I thought would be a childhood nightmare of Georgia winning back-to-back national championships. No, man, this has been a great bowl season. It's been awesome. I feel like I'm really trying to ride this wave of happiness because I know that on Tuesday I'm going to turn on the TV and there's going to be some bullshit, way too early top 25 I'm going to disagree with. And then we're just going to only talk about basketball for the next 2 months and I'm going to be dead inside.
Well, thankfully, not on this show, damn it, Chris. We're not going to talk basketball. We may talk about it one day during the SEC tournament. We're SEC football. But I got to ask you this. I got to start with this. You're a big Alabama guy. Are you fearful that Alabama will never catch up to Georgia's dynasty?
So I honestly, I think it's a really good point. I always love when people, I grew up a Bama fan, but this is crazy thing that you can do as an adult. You can do it as a child too, but a lot of times as an adult, it's just called having rational, objective opinions. And since I love college football, and I always have, and yeah, I love when Bama does really well, but I also love talking about all these different teams. I think when you look at these two teams objectively, yeah, I think Kirby has distanced himself from Saban in a pretty quick way. And I did a deep dive on this a while back, and I called and bombarded you with it about just the amount of talent that Saban was signing that was leaving. Because, you talk about sure, maybe some of these guys didn't play or whatever, but you talk about the stars and the rankings, they haven't lost their top player in the recruiting class in 2 of the last 4 years in this deep dive I did. And you compare it to Kirby. I think that obviously Saban's the best coach of all time. I don't think the sky is necessarily falling. You have the 2 losses by 4 points, whatever. Love what they did in the bowl game. But Bryce Young is not walking back through that door. And the fact that you had to replace Jalen Hurts with Tua, with Mac, with Bryce Young, I mean, you're a Tennessee guy. That's like replacing Peyton with Peyton with Peyton with Peyton. It's they're obviously not as good as Peyton Manning. You know what I'm saying? That's there has to be some natural level of drop off. And I think what worries me when you really look at it, because we joked around with Georgia fans forever, right? About 41 years in 1980 and Kirby, that fake punt, all these bad decisions. Well, now he's figured out the coaching part of it. He's amassed more talent than anybody, and he's 46 years old. So now we're just sitting in this this process where he just has everything working like clockwork. Yeah, I think that he's going to win a lot of championships. I really do, because I think he's separated himself from everyone, including Nick Saban.
You realize there are 1-year-olds, Chris, that have never seen Alabama beat Tennessee. So,
in China, they would probably be put to sleep. So there's that. That's probably.
Now, you put out a deep dive on Stetson Bennett the other day. I thought you did a fantastic job. If anybody's not seen it, I've retweeted it. It's on Marler's Twitter as well as on Saturday Down South. Can you kind of recap the highlights of Stetson Bennett on your deep dive heading into the national championship game?
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. So I think it's the stuff with Stetson is so crazy because he's so polarizing for no reason. And now we've all heard the stories ad nauseam about he's a walk-on, he did this. And what's really comical about it, and I think you would agree, is this kid came in and he was the scapegoat for every loss. Everything that went wrong with that program for 2 straight years, every bad, he lost to Bama twice, he lost to Florida, really bad numbers in those games. And as soon as JT Daniels came in, Stetson Bennett was the scapegoat for every loss they had. And even going into 2021, there was a lot of that fan base that was, like the hate for Stetson Bennett will never be as strong as it was from his own fan base for a lot of his career. And I'm glad that they've like finally come around and all that kind of stuff. But what's happened here is because since he's 5'10", since he's kind of looks like Screech Powers and he's a walk-on and he's got a lot of tape early on in his career of like, like throwing interceptions in big moments or this and that. But the bottom line is like after that SEC championship game against Alabama, when he threw 2 interceptions, including a pick six, and they lost, they go to the college football playoff. And from that moment forward, what stood out to me the most was even in the national championship when it seemed like, oh my God, like Bama just got a fumble that they're leading in the fourth. Maybe they're going to win. Herbie didn't put the ball in anyone else's hands. He put it right in Stetson Bennett's hands. And they went right down the field, 4 for 4 for 82 yards and leads the game winning drive. And since then, he has been incredible to watch against ranked teams in the playoff alone. Like the fourth quarter, what the whole deep dive is about is he might be the most clutch fourth quarter quarterback that we've seen in college football during the playoff era. And I know that sounds crazy because of Joe Burrow and guys like that, but I mean, his numbers are incredible. And last week against Ohio State, you're down by double digits. He's pretty mediocre in the second and third quarter, and like threw an interception, 33% completion, goes 10-12 in the fourth quarter, 2 scoring drives, and they win. And it's like this kid, they're not winning because of the talent around him. He is driving this entire thing, and it's really impressive to watch. So I think for me, I love to like kill lazy narratives, and I think there might not be a lazier one in the country than Stetson Bennett is just like not a lot of talent.
Right. He's Rudy with rings, as I like to call him.
I say he's Tom Brady with a perm. That's what I said.
Did you see after the game, Kirby Smart said they had a lot of doubters? What do you make of that?
I was happy he said that because that was now we're even for the Bryce Young comment at a Heisman ceremony last year when he was talking about how no one ever thought he could make it, and he was like the number 2 overall recruit. I don't know who was doubting him at all. I don't think any of us were doubting him last year going into the season until that game in Atlanta. But then, the bottom line is Kirby's just been that thing has been a machine. It was interesting to watch because I was there because Georgia fans haven't seen that or been in that situation in quite some time where it was like, oh God, like this is, I mean, you remember 98, like the Arkansas game, right? Like this is this generational team that you can win a national championship. It's so hard to get to the mountaintop. And like all of a sudden we're having one bad game and it could just go to waste. That game was incredible. I think that Herbie did a great job of like, coaching with the timeout, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't think they have any doubters. They can play the Jets right now. And
so who's winning on Monday, do you think? Georgia? Any chance TCU pulls off the stunner?
I feel like that was a Stone Cold Steve Austin reference. That was good. I think that like we've all dismissed and like disrespect Tennessee or TCU for like most of the season, right? Like the committee was like just refusing to move them up. They're like, yeah, they won, but that game was competitive because they scored points and the other team scored points. I didn't think they'd beat Michigan. They're 5-1 against ranked opponents. The thing for me that I don't see what they do or what they have that is going to stop Georgia for one. And also be able to consistently put up points and keep up with them with that defense. There's not one specific thing that, I can point to where I'm like, oh, here's where they have an advantage. And that's the case for a lot of teams that play Georgia. But with TCU, man, I don't think Max Duggan is going to just ball out against the defense he's about to face. They've been really good and they've been consistent about winning, but they've also had they've been behind 5 times at the halftime. They've come back and won. I don't think like it would take. Well, I was gonna say it would take like multiple turnovers, but like we saw this a week ago. And I think it was the most impressive thing about Georgia was you have 2 missed field goals. You have that weird play call from Munkin on second goal from the 3 to McConkey. You have an interception from Stetson. You did all that. And Ohio State played like their best possible game, and you still beat them. So I just don't see what TCU is going to be able to do or how many mistakes Georgia would have to make for them to be in that game.
What are your thoughts on old Bobby riding his motorcycle down there to Texas A&M? I mean, does it make him a more dangerous team, or is this going to be the death nail in the Jimbo's coffin down there?
Well, if anybody's going to be a death nail, it'll be DJ Durkin for sure. Yeah, I don't think that this is what makes them dangerous. It's any off-field antics. I mean, like I think, I mean, Bobby Petrino is a great offensive mind. He's obviously still got it. Like, you know, they put up a lot of points everywhere he's been. Um, I think it's a good move from that. Just it's hilarious to me that this guy, like, he's like a 16-year-old, like trying to find a summer job. He's just like, I don't want to work at Brewster's anymore. I don't want to scoop ice cream. I'm going to go over here now. Um, but no, I mean, I think it's a good hire. I just am not, I don't believe at all that Jimbo Fisher is going to give up play calling because I think he's too egotistical. And I think that he's making a hire to save face to pretend like he's doing the right thing. But you think he's going to give that up?
I think by hiring Bobby Petrino, he signaled that he will because Bobby Petrino is not going to sit on his damn hands during the game. You know what?
I mean, I think Bobby Petrino's probably happy to be back a little bit. And like, I'm sure he's going to be heavily involved. And I hope he is the play caller because it'd be a lot more fun to watch than the shit that Jimbo's rolled out there over the past like couple of years. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I tell you what, that game against LSU at the end of the season may have been like the worst thing that could have happened to them going in the offseason. Because now Jimbo's like, told y'all, still got it. But yeah, we'll see, man. It's just I will say this too. I thought the Bryce Young like finale was really awesome, and them opting in. There may not have been a more impressive postseason, like a more uplifting and like confidence like riddled going into the offseason moment than the Orange Bowl with Joe Milton. He was fantastic.
Yeah, he was. I mean, of course, you should have expected nothing less.
That's why I don't fucking give you confidence. Just try to be nice to you, and then.
Well, let me ask you this: who do you got more confidence in? And I'm speaking specifically of next season,
Yeah.
Alabama or LSU. Alabama, I get it; they're going to be loaded, but who knows? I mean, both coordinators could be gone potentially, and all the star power they were losing to the NFL draft. LSU did beat them. It was in Baton Rouge, of course. But who do you think? Who do you got more confidence in right now, LSU or Alabama?
Well, let me start by saying that is the sixth time LSU has beaten Alabama in Baton Rouge since 1955. So huge win, by 1 point into overtime. It was fantastic to watch. I like it was an amazing win, and they outplayed Bama again for the second straight year. And just this time with Brian Kelly instead of Coach O. I think Brian Kelly's a great coach. I think that Jaden Daniels is so much better than I thought he would be. I don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be yet for Alabama. But I would say the whole sky is falling thing about like the coordinators, like Bama was ranked in the top 10 in several defensive categories, and they got absolutely cooked at Tennessee. But luckily Jalen Hyatt doesn't play for every other team. Otherwise, I would have jumped off a bridge a long time ago. But like, I don't think that I think it was a great win. I don't think that LSU, I think it's a great confidence booster, and they're going to have a lot of confidence winning next season. That's a team that got dominated home by y'all. That's a team that like looks pretty bad at times, and in a shootout with Florida at one point this season. Like I don't think that LSU, since they beat Bama for the second time in the last 11 years by a combined 6 points, I'm not convinced that they're going to all of a sudden take their place.
All right, same question in the East though: Kentucky or Florida? Kentucky's remade the offense pretty quickly with the transfer portal. Billy Napier just kind of went through essentially a year zero. It was like a wasted year with a potential NFL quarterback. Who you got more confidence in next season, Kentucky or Florida?
I don't even want to answer that question because I really that's such a crap situation with Napier in Florida, because I really don't know what they have coming back because of all the turnover. I will say this though, depending on what that offensive line looks like next year. Do you remember I came on this podcast and said in September, I think my exact words were like, Kentucky's kind of shitty. And I got a lot of pushback from that. And it turns out they weren't kind of shitty. They were just real shitty. They weren't a good football team. And I think that like we've seen Stoops be able to have like such, up and down success where the highs they're higher than they've been in the program forever. I don't know if he has built from a recruiting standpoint, like the big blue wall. I think that's huge. I just, Florida's going to be able to get more talent every single time, right? And I think that depending on what Kentucky is able to do with offense, like on the offense with Cohen, that is might be the biggest pick of the offseason. If they can get back to that 2021 offense, I would definitely say Kentucky. But they have a lot of holes, man. And Calipari ain't done nothing with all that talent.
How about this? It's been a rivalry in the past. I think it's a rivalry once again, and they haven't even played. Ole Miss or Auburn. Who you got more confidence in next season? The Lane Train's back, but hell, it seems like half the fan base, he lost about half of them already. And then, of course, we got Reverend Hugh down there on the plains.
What's wild is that this, like, Lane 2022 Lane Kiffin did his best 2021 Brian Harsin possible. I don't know about off the field, but we can make speculations. You never know. Lane's a attractive single dude, but like he closed out horribly. And what I don't understand this day and age is like, I think maybe it's Jimmy Sexton or what, but like the strong arming of like programs like where it's like, no, you're gonna have to come woo me. We saw Jimbo do it at Florida State. Like you need to make me feel like you want me here, because otherwise we're crazy enough at this day and age. Like and money's not real in the SEC, where it's like, they'll hire me, and Auburn would have like I have more faith in Lane Kiffin because I think that the turnaround he was able to have in Ole Miss that quickly, with the 10-win season going to Sugar Bowl, that doesn't happen a lot in Oxford. He has so much production coming back on offense. The defense will be whatever the defense is. Maybe if he doesn't go for every fourth down, in the first quarter, like maybe this is not the first quarter. I think that would be a good improvement. I think Auburn's going to get better under Hugh Freeze, and it's great. But it has been hilarious to watch, and I had a lot of respect for Auburn all year. I went down there for the first time ever, had a blast. But Auburn fans talking shit to Ole Miss during their bowl game for losing their bowl game and then pretending like, yeah, we got the right guy. It's like you were dead set on him after you were telling everyone you were going to get Deion Sanders, and then after you were saying you were getting, I don't even remember who the other one was, and it was like just the level of like delusion and hilarity because this is the SEC. I hope we have that every offseason.
Now, a final one of those, Arkansas or Mississippi State. Sam Pittman, a little disappointing. Obviously, we got a coaching turnover due to tragedy at Mississippi State, but yeah. I like what Zach Arnett's doing, and it looks like both these programs are kind of battling it out for Kendall Browse, so that could obviously change the narrative here. But who you got more confidence in next season, Arkansas, which has got a ton of guys in the portal, or Mississippi State after a coaching change?
I think Arkansas. I think it's just what Mississippi State went through. It's just really tough to deal with in general. I love the fact that Will Rogers and that, like, I've never wanted officials to fix games, which I know is a shock to you as a Bama guy. But like, if Mississippi State didn't win that game the other day, like it would have been like just a travesty, like because it was so like cool to see all like the pouring out of, like emotion support for Leach after he passed away, but that is a very difficult thing to like weather that storm. And it's not like Starkville is. I feel like there's always been a ceiling there, even when Leach was there, like even when Bolin was there. The ceiling's been 9 wins. Like they rarely get up over that. I want to say they've only had like 5 seasons in all time or something like that. I forgot what it was, like of 9 or more wins.
I think it's 9 seasons of 9 wins.
Okay. So, and it's not like I've always said this. They're kind of like the South Carolina of the West and vice versa. Arkansas can be a really competitive team in this league. Whoever's making the schedule at Arkansas needs to like fucking sit this one out next year. Okay. Like I don't know. Sam Pittman is an angel. Okay. He's a chubby, red-faced angel. And the fact that like he has to like walk in, he's like, all right, well, what are we doing this year? They're like, oh, listen, you're going to love this. Your conference schedule is going to be a nightmare, but to make it worse, your non-conference schedule, we're going to put you up against an old SEC coach who has nothing to lose. And then another old SEC coach that also has nothing to lose. Both of them off the field issues, and they have a great offense. And then you're going to go fly out to play the Mormons in BYU. And you're like, okay, well then what about the postseason? It's like, well, that was just October. I don't get it. I just don't know who's making the schedule for him. KJ Jefferson's back for his 11th year, and he's been fantastic. It's just, I think he's this year's Hendon Hooker from not the production, because Hendon Hooker was incredible all season and honestly last year too. But like just flying under the radar for no reason. It's like we're all oblivious to how great this kid is. And if I hear one more person say he's a running quarterback, I'm gonna lose my mind.
It's funny you say chubby, red-faced angel. That's how my mom describes me. But
Nice.
speaking of KJ, so I did want to ask you, who do you think is the best odds to win the Heisman out of the SEC next season? Is it KJ, or will it have to be? Unfortunately, it seems like the way it works, you got to be a damn playoff team to be considered for the Heisman.
It's not KJ. It's a great story, but it's not. I mean, they just won't. I don't see Arkansas. I mean, they have to go 11-1, and they have to go 11-1 and like make it to Atlanta too. I don't see that happening with that schedule. That doesn't mean they're not a great. They're not on the rise, and Pittman has done a great job. From the SEC, Jaden Daniels is an interesting one just because he's going to have a lot of primetime games, like especially at LSU and also early on against Florida State. That's a big one. I don't think anybody from Bama. I'm sure I'm probably wrong about that. But yeah, I think like just when you look at it, you do have to be like a playoff contending team. So maybe Lane Kiffin somehow goes 11-1, and you have the same kind of numbers he put up this year with Jenkins. Whoever steps in at quarterback next year for Georgia, Stetson made it this year. And I tell you what, man, like Hendon Hooker should have been a Heisman finalist, and there's no reason that they kept him out of New York at all. I mean, they let anybody up there, even those wet bandits from Home Alone 2. Like they were allowed to go there. Like Hooker had like this incredible 2 years, and he meant more to that program, I think, than anybody in a long time. If Joe Milton can like, because he's arguably more exciting to watch. Joe Milton is like, he's got a touch of like a Aaron Judge to him, where it's like he can just do things that no one else can do. And if he puts up, similar numbers, or I think it could be him.
Oh, there's our clip right there. All right, last thing for you. You mentioned South Carolina. Any concern there? I mean, it was such a roller coaster season. It was disappointing to start. Then they started winning some games. They got ranked. Then they lose to Missouri. They got their ass kicked by Florida. Then they turn around and beat the hell out of Tennessee and Clemson. Right. At Clemson. Now they got all these guys hitting the portal. What do you make of what's going on at South Carolina? Any concern, or is this just par for the course?
Well, it's hard to win at South Carolina because, again, that schedule's tough too. And Beamer's done an incredible job, man. He really has. And them being able to go up and like score in all these different phases of the game, and like really when they seem like they're always shorthanded. I feel bad for South Carolina fans because like my family lives in Columbia. My sister went to school there, and it's like not a fan base that rides the waves of the season more like dramatically and invested. I feel like it's South Carolina fans. It's like their entire attitude about life and like we can win a national championship. Like, and the next week it's like we're gonna go 4-8. This is the worst. I don't think it depends on Spencer Rattler.
I was going to ask you, do you think he comes back?
Where would he go?
XFL.
I don't understand why this is even being brought up.
He's got an NFL arm.
That does what? Most of the time, it's like.
I'll tell you this: I'd rather have Spencer Rattler than Will Levis. Am I wrong?
Oh no, I like that pick. I thought you were going to say Stetson Bennett. It's not like he's not a bad quarterback, but he just has not. I tell you what, he would really benefit from staying an extra year instead of going out in a class that has C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Will Levis, Hendon Hooker, and anyone else that doesn't fumble the ball while running and then somehow pick it up for a 7-yard gain once every 3 games. I hope he comes back because I think he would be like a really good, not addition, but really like important to keep building with Beamer's building. But I don't think he's like a difference maker. Somebody I saw it on Twitter the other day. Somebody said, if he comes back, is he the clear-cut Heisman frontrunner from the SEC? And I was like, what world are we living in right now?
He's been a Heisman candidate 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
All right. So I appreciate you, Chris. Before you go, tell the audience where to follow you, where to find all your work.
Vern Funquist on Twitter and Instagram. The podcast is called College Football Uncensored. We're not as structured or organized as you, and we don't have the same cute red cheeks. My mom doesn't tell me that, but like, we have a lot of fun over there, and we always have a blast talking to you, man. This has been a lot of fun this season. You did a great job. It was really fun to watch you grow this thing in year 2.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, brothers. All right, so just want to thank Chris once again. He jumped on a late notice here. Gave him about 5 minutes notice here. Didn't realize Cousin Shane was going to be under the weather. So with Shane out, reached out to Marler. Very grateful that he gave us that time on the show. But hey, that's going to do it for this week's shows. We'll be back on Monday for an official national championship game preview. May have a guest lined up for that one as well. We'll see if that comes through. But hey, savor it. We only got one college football game left. Monday night, nationally televised national championship game between Georgia and TCU. Cannot wait. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.